Hello. Just double checking that I'm live. I'm going to be joined tonight by my friend Elle. There we go. We're live. Oh, there's Elle. I'm just going to wait for her to request access to join me tonight. And tonight we're going to talk about the ego and the self-worth. So I'm really, really excited for this conversation. It's going to be juicy. I hope you all grabbed a drink. She's coming in. I got myself a little sparkling water with blueberries. Trying to be a little fancy.
Hi!
Hey!
How's it going?
Good.
I asked you first.
I'm good. I'm excited for tonight. I was just saying, I got myself a little sparkling drink with blueberries. A little fancy for
Yes.
tonight.
I'm loving it. Oh my goodness. I just have water, but it's
I
still
was
good.
like, let's get into this.
Yeah. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for what we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, do you want to let's do a little intro, I guess.
Yeah, you go first.
Okay. Well, for those of you tuning in who don't know me, my name is Osman. I'm a mindset and wellness coach, and I help women entrepreneurs who are dealing with stress and burnout and helping them move into a mode of thriving both in life and in business. And what about you?
Hello, everyone. My name is Elle, and I'm a mindset coach for people-pleasing women. So that's the person who is constantly putting themselves on the back burner as they are always being this and that for everybody and trying to meet everyone's expectations and really getting her to recognize that she is important, she is worthy, and she needs to put herself first in order to help people the way that she wants. So that's what I do.
I know, I love it, and
Yeah.
I think what we both do just goes so well together. So that's why I'm really really happy that we're having this
Oh,
conversation
goodness.
tonight. Hi, Sadia,
Yeah.
I can see you over here. Thanks for joining. So let's get
Hey.
started.
Yes,
Let's talk
please.
about ego to begin with. What how do you define the ego? How do you talk about the ego, and how do you explain it to people when when people ask you or you're talking to someone who might be new when it comes to
Yeah.
ego talk?
Yes. So I think that it's always important to note that it's like this thought will evolve over time. And so for me, the way that I view it is that the ego is like the bulldog protecting the inner child who is wounded and right.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing about me, everyone, like
Yeah.
y'all, analogies are my thing, okay? So
You're
you are
the
gonna
best
hear
with analogies. You just have the best one, like your visuals. I'm like, wow, I get it. I really
right?
do. Yeah.
Yes. We are visual people. So
Yeah.
yeah, the ego is like the bulldog that's like, no worries, inner child, I got you. Okay, so we aren't gonna let anything hurt us whatsoever.
I
The
love
issue with
it.
that, though, right? But the issue with that is it doesn't allow for you to explore those wounds and really seek to heal them. So you get kind of like stuck in this just this trap of, like I've been hurt in the past, I've been rejected in the past, and so now I'm so afraid to like be open and vulnerable that I'm just
Mhm.
gonna stay in this mode and like just deflect deflect anything that
Yeah.
might trigger me. I don't want any part in it. You know what I mean? And I think that it's important to know that it's different from the inner critic because there's actually a question that we are both going to touch on today, but which was like, what happens if you hate your ego? Because I think like sometimes people probably think that the ego and the inner critic are the same thing because they kind of talk similar or in a similar
Mhm.
way. And it's important to note like the inner critic will always find something wrong. And so like the inner critic will also attack the ego. So I think it's also important to kind of put that into perspective as well. How about you though?
I love that you said you use that image of the bulldog because like it does have that like I don't know how to say it, but like almost like that wanting to like protect. Like I don't want to use the word aggressive because that maybe sounds a little like like harsher than I would want it, but like it
Yeah.
definitely gives you that like visual of like I'm guarding and like I don't
Yeah.
want anything vulnerable inside. I
Yeah.
think like I don't have like my own analogies for this. Like I've heard it
All
referred
good.
to as like kind of like the inner roommate or
Mm,
like that little voice. Like to me it's like that little voice that like is often like trying to like chime in whenever you're trying to like step out of your comfort zone. So like anything that's new, anything that like appears to be threatening, like that's
yeah.
when like all of a sudden like all those thoughts come in and it's trying to keep you within like that circle and like not
Yeah.
wanting you to like step out of it. And
Yeah.
like it's when you become aware of that, like it really opens up your world to like understanding like where that's coming from, like what's coming from like a place of ego and like wanting to keep you safe, like
Yeah.
and keep you small a lot of
Yeah.
the times versus like the voice that's like telling, and that's usually from the gut where it's like I can do this, I want to do this, but then you have that other voice that comes in and it's like can you like really should we be doing this
Yeah.
so that's kind of how I usually talk about it. So I love that we both have different ways to that we look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the thing is, right, that like the ego, like it's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, it
Mm-hmm.
definitely doesn't serve us well, and we know that for sure. But I think that when you can show it compassion and kind of approach it from that angle, you really see that it genuinely is just trying to protect you, and it's using scare tactics to do that, right? Because like we like as human beings we're like love and fear, those are the driving
Yep.
emotions, okay,
Yeah,
right?
the big ones
So
that are, yeah. It's
big
like the
ones,
red,
yeah.
green light thing.
Exactly. So right now, ego is like really looking at the fear side of things and be like, no, 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 don't do that. You don't want to do it. It's gonna be too much. It's gonna be too scary. Too this, too that. But if we kind of shift to like the love side, we're like, okay, hold on, ego. I see where you're coming from. But well, I was gonna say like you can reason with it, but I don't really think that that is like useful. But you can be
Yeah,
like, listen, you're
yeah.
not going to be in the passenger seat anymore. You're actually going to be in the back seat. But no worries, like I understand that you are concerned, but don't worry, we will get through it. I think that's really
I
important.
agree. And I think when you're coming from that place of love, as you say, like you actually give yourself the chance to be curious about it, right? Because usually, like when it's coming from a place of fear, naturally we like react to it and like, like we're looking to protect, like we're looking for coping mechanisms, like how do we stay safe? How do we not show our vulnerability? But when you're coming from a
Yeah,
place of love, you're able to be like, okay, this is happening. We're
yeah,
good. We're okay. We're safe. Like what's happening? How can we move forward? And yeah, like really ask like the right question with I want to say without judgment. I know that's like easier said than done, but
yeah,
that's kind of what like when you bring in that compassion, that's where you're able to be curious instead of judging it.
absolutely, absolutely. So, Sarah, question for you then. Regarding the ego, how has it helped you?
Yeah, I this question is I think like something that we need to talk about more because like I don't know about you, but like ever since I started to like dive into learning about the ego and like what that means and like the voices that come in and everything, like I've like pictured it as something that's bad. Like it's like okay that like that voice that's trying to like hold me back from doing what I want to do. And so I've always associated it with like, oh, I want to get rid of it. And I
Yeah,
think you and I have talked about this before. Like, I don't know if you could ever get rid of it,
yeah,
but I never thought until recently to like pause and think like, how has it helped me? And I remember like when I first got asked by Giselle, actually, who I know you know very well too.
The best
Giselle,
coach. She's
yeah,
both
the
of our
best coach.
coaches.
Yeah,
Amazing.
exactly. I didn't know what to say. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, how did it help?
Yeah.
How did it help me? And for me, how it was presenting itself was through perfectionism. And that's kind of what we were addressing. Like a lot of things that I was doing, like from a place of perfectionism, that was coming from a place of the ego trying to protect me. And I just kept thinking, like, well, how could the like any thoughts or any behavior of perfectionism like have helped me? But where that really came up for me was when I first moved to Canada, which I don't know if I shared with you, but like I'm not from Canada, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
from Mauritius, which is like a small island east of Madagascar, and I've been in Canada for 10 years, so like Canada really is my home now. But I
Mm-hmm.
remember when I first moved here, I moved here by myself. Like I didn't have any relatives. Like my family
Mm-hmm.
is still back home. I have my brothers with me now, but I really moved here like at 19 with not knowing much about Canada, like moving into a new culture. And I had moved here to start university. And so I was also starting like a new chapter of my life. And I remember like wanting to like do everything really well. Like I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to like not only be a good student like at work
Mm-hmm.
at university, but like I wanted to like be a good daughter, like make my parents proud. Like I wanted to become like a good friend to all of my new Canadian friends, and like I wanted to be accepted. And so that's where like that perfectionism started to show. Like I always felt like, oh, I'm not doing enough, like I need to be more like this or more like that. And so for a long time, like I couldn't figure out like how it helps me. But when I took a step back and really asked myself that question, I realized that it helped me in a weird way move past the fear of like staying stuck. Like I was always somewhat trying to kind of move forward in the next step instead of feeling stuck in like I'm away from home, like I'm in a new place where I don't really know anyone. It helped me to set a lot of like amazing goals for myself that kept me going, like whenever I was like, oh, am I doing enough? Right. But I'm so proud of like everything that I've accomplished. I'm really reflecting on the last 10 years, but like I'm really proud of everything that I've accomplished, whether that's, career wise, education wise, relationships, like a lot of different areas of my life. And even though at times it was driven by perfectionism, right? And I know it like perfectionism wasn't always my friend. I can really see how it's helped me move forward and helped me accomplish so much. And now when I view it through this lens, I just don't feel as angry, I'll say,
Mm-hmm.
about having been a perfectionist in the past. And it's not I don't feel like it's a part of me that I need to get rid of. I think now, as we talked about earlier, I just need to like approach it from a lens of love and bring in that compassion, and then ask myself questions when I notice that I'm being a perfectionist in that moment, and maybe asking like, what do I feel threatened by? Like, what am I doing that's causing me to kind of retract into like defense mode?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh man. Honestly, Sarah, like I can't even imagine like moving to a completely different country and like university already being a new chapter in and of itself. Like for
Yeah,
me, like
right.
university, right? Like started like even like I went to university in essentially like the same time that I grew up in Toronto, but even that was like a stark transition for me. So I can't imagine like it's like double, triple, quadruple whammy with all of that. So yeah, it would make sense that you're kind of just like I want to belong. I
Yeah.
don't have anybody else to turn to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make sure that I am the perfect this or that perfect role for other people
Yes.
because that is how I believe I
Mm-hmm.
will be accepted.
Yeah. I love that you bring in that aspect of like other people, because that's totally what it is. Like I felt like I needed to be good enough for others in order to kind of find my place like in that moment, which like yeah, I mean again, like now when I think back, like I have no regrets about it. It's just like now I find like inner peace like
Mm.
thinking about like how it has helped me instead of feeling frustrated about it. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely like a like it's a good way to now view the story, right? What
Yeah,
about you?
absolutely.
How has the ego helped you?
Okay, so I see that our connection is like kind of doing weird things.
Oh,
So, with the off chance that it is me, I'm just going to switch my connection. Okay,
okay.
so for me, uh, the ego has helped me by protecting me from being rejected. So, like growing up, I went to a school that didn't have a lot of black people, to be honest with you. It
Okay.
was the kind of
Yeah, yeah.
case, it was the case where like if there was like a new kid, it'd be like, "Oh, are y'all related or something?"
Right, okay,
Right?
yeah.
And it's just like, okay, like tokenism and everything just put it going into that melting pot, right? And never was I like not accepted, but I always felt that I needed to do more, to be more in order to keep the acceptance that I had around me. So essentially the my ego was kind of saying like even as I was a kid feeling those emotions, and then into my adult life now, just the idea of showing up regularly and showing up like completely as myself
Mm-hmm.
is still really frightening because I can't honestly say that I have like truly done that long enough to know that things will always be fine. Like there's this fear that says, like you're going to do this thing, you're going to be truly yourself, and then you're going to be rejected, and then like your head's going to get bitten off because like you're going to make a mistake and people are going
Yeah.
to like flip out and it's going to be problematic. So like in that sense, my like default is to just hide. Like if I feel like I can't, and shout out again to our coach Chisel because oh my gosh, amazing.
She's
But
the best.
like yeah, like she kind of like brought that out and kind of said, okay, so anytime you feel like you aren't giving or you haven't done anything to earn someone's approval, validation, acceptance, then you just hide. You literally go under the covers and you're like, I'll show up when I feel like I can give you support, you know? And so that is how my ego has helped me just by feeling or believing that I'm fine when I just hide, and it's just better that way. It's just better to not take any risk in terms
Mm-hmm.
of being myself and being honest in that sense, rather than to yeah, just like it's better to essentially people please and be that chameleon, or if you feel like you can't give anything, just hide.
Yeah,
That's essentially what my ego does.
and you know what? Like, I mean, it's it's meant to protect us, right? Like, if you think about it, like as humans, like we want to be loved and like accepted, and so if you're in an environment where you're feeling like you may not be given that, it's absolutely normal to like, it's almost like I'm thinking of like a child and like you're wanting to protect it, right? And so, of course, like that's a natural thing that your body wants to, your body and your mind want to make sure that you are okay, and that was the way for you to remain safe in those moments,
Yeah,
especially when you're like young, right? Like that's a
yeah,
lot to think about and to handle, and like that's when it's like it's good to have that protection.
yeah, absolutely. The issue then is just when it like keeps you stuck. where
Yeah.
it's quicksand. Like at first you're like, okay, no, this is good, this is good, because there might have actually been a scenario where like I decided not to show up, and then it was actually a good thing because
Yeah.
it probably would have really went sideways if I had. But then,
Mm-hmm.
again, your mind finding evidence for whatever you believe in is going to say, oh, no, 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 don't take that risk, because remember that one time when it was actually useful that we
Yeah.
didn't do that thing? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Keep doing that. That way you'll be fine. And
Yeah.
then like we build up that low or that negative self-worth because we're not showing up, and we feel like we are unworthy because we don't feel like we can truly be ourselves. And then that just has that negative effect as we as we like care so much about what people think, and then we become those people pleasers.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I think you bring up a really
Yeah.
good point of like, like once it happens once and like let's say that first time like it was necessary, then you kind of learn that okay, that's what we need to do, right? And like the subconscious mind like creates those filters of like, okay, well the next time something similar happens, it's like, oh, we know what this is, we recognize it, we know what to do, right? And the thing is, a lot of those things happen when we're younger, right? Like we start
Yeah.
learning those coping mechanisms when we're younger. And as you said, like
Yeah.
we get stuck later on. And that's usually because we continue to carry those same coping mechanisms into adulthood.
And it doesn't work.
And
It
that's
doesn't serve us.
exactly. And I
Mm.
think that's where like, it's important to learn about those things and like become aware of it, so that you can now make a choice of like, okay, in this moment, is it helping me? Yes or
Yeah.
no, right? And then you can kind of slowly, shift and have different ways of like going about that situation.
Absolutely. Another analogy coming.
Oh, go
It's
for it.
like
I love your
it's
analogies.
it it's like living in your house and seeing that the wood is rotting, and then just saying like, "Oh no, it's fine. Like we'll continue to live, we'll continue to do our thing, whatever, whatever." And then, the next scenario is that you see that the wood is rotting and you decide to do something about it, but your plan is to, oh, just like slap on a coat of paint or just like cover it up with something and it'll
Right.
be fine, right? So, but like the issue is that you actually have termites. And unless you know that you have termites, like you're not going to do what you need to do to get rid of them. So
Yeah.
I feel like that's how a lot of us kind of go around, there are these issues, there's this like this weight that we still carry from our childhood wounds that we haven't healed yet, and then when we bring them into our adult lives, we are so easily triggered by people and things, and we're like, oh no, I don't know what's going on. And it's like, well, actually you kind of need to like stop and get, unfortunately, a little uncomfortable to recognize
Before, yeah,
that.
before it gets more comfortable, or not more comfortable,
Yeah.
but at least before you start, you like experience that growth and like that, like I don't know, inner peace and like that, yeah, like
Yeah, but like you need to address the problem. And a lot of people have difficulty with doing that with fair reason, right? Of
yeah.
course, with good reason, just like how uncomfortable it is. But I think like 2020, just in general, like really,
That's in the theme. Like, you know what? I love that you like talked about the analogy of the house because I was trying to think of like like when I was like reflecting when Giselle asked me about like how I could let go of perfectionism and like how it has helped me. Like I was trying to think of like a visual to help me, like whenever I need to snap out of it a little bit quicker and like recover, like have a visual that brings me back to like a place of like love and compassion. And mine was actually so like the perfectionism was me being in a mode of like surviving, right? Like, and now I want to switch into thriving. And so I actually thought about a house, and I was saying, like, to me, it's like, okay, all these years of like perfectionism was like me building like a really solid house, like the best,
Mhm.
like creating the best foundation I can for the house. And now I can move into decorating this house. Like I can now have fun and like make it my own space and like, like put in all the little colors, all the little things that would really help me like thrive. And
Yeah.
in this way I can like, let go of that perfection
Yeah.
and like and that ego talk as well.
Yeah. I kind of want to like push back on that for a second, like just that
Yeah.
analogy. I think another way to look at it too can be the fact that you actually have to move house because the thing that
Yeah.
was working for you like it might have been helpful to a certain extent, but it wasn't built on like the healthy foundation that you now are seeing. So now
I
you're like, you
like
know what, let's actually start from scratch. Like, like we have a better understanding of why we built this house. This was our starter home. This was
yeah.
the starter home. Yes.
First home first home buyer. There we go.
This was this, yeah, first home buyer. This was the
Okay.
starter home. And now we saw what we liked, saw what we didn't like, and now we know what we're gonna look for this time around. Yo, these analogies are the best. Oh my gosh.
I know.
Amazing.
I feel like
Amazing.
you're the best person to talk to when it comes to analogies.
Oh my gosh.
Amazing.
So, right? So, kind of going off of what you began to say, like talk more on how the ego has hurt you.
Yeah. Well, I think like what's interesting is like the story that you shared earlier about like your like the fear of rejection is like it's really fitting with like how the ego has hurt me. And for me, like that goes back to like I think grade, I'm gonna say grade 5, grade 6, but during that time like I had switched to a new school. And like when you're young and like you're starting to make friends at school, like now it's like you're like your safe place. Like all the people you've created like connections. And I remember like when I switched to a new school, I was now like the new kid. And I remember like really like I remember feeling that effect. I was almost like, you first walk in on the first day and like everyone's looking at you. And I remember being like, oh my God, like I like everybody knows each other. I don't know anyone. I don't fit in. And like, everyone was familiar with like the way that the teacher would do things and like what was asked of them. And I had to kind of relearn like how they did it at the new school and things like that. And so I remember thinking like, wow, I have to work really hard. Like I have to work harder in order
Mhm.
to do well again in the eyes of the teacher. So again, like focusing on others and how that looks to others, but then also fitting in now into like a new social group. And so like from a young age, I created this story of like I don't fit in. Like when it comes to entering a new social setting, a new social environment, I am usually the one who does not fit in, even if I'm not the new person. Like it's just like a story that like I've carried with me. So later on when I moved to like when I went on to high school, university, any kind of new groups of friends, like any new jobs that I started, even though yes, like at one point you're always the new person, but even after being settled into that environment, like I always had like this lingering feeling of but you're the odd one out though, and that for a long time like I always felt like I had to compensate then to like make up for what I thought I lacked. And by doing that I wasn't always showing up in the way that I wanted to, or I would try to do things in such a way that I know it would probably, you talk about people pleasers, like I knew it would please other people, and therefore that means I would be accepted within the group. And it took me a long time to like, it's not until I think last year, I think the spring of last year, that I finally realized that I had this story going on, because at the time I had just started a new job, and I knew going in that this job was so right for me, that I had everything that that was needed to do a really good job. And I remember thinking like, why do I still feel this way? Like every time I still feel like it's not enough. And like, why?
Mm,
And that's when I started to kind of unravel that story for myself. But
yeah.
it's crazy to think like and see where it came from. And that was from a while ago, and I never realized this whole time I've been carrying it with me,
Hmm.
which is crazy.
Wild, right?
Yeah.
It's like
What about
cemented in, it's like cemented in your body, and then you like don't even know like that you have that weight. It's like, or almost like carrying a backpack with this really heavy textbook that you like didn't need, like you haven't needed for so long and don't need at all anymore, but you still lug it around. Like what? Why do you do this? But you're like,
I
oh,
love the
but this is how
analogy.
I,
I love it.
right? It's like this is how I gain weight, da da da. But or like gain muscle or whatever.
I love that
But
you say like cement in your body, because it is like you, it really does like there's like actual heaviness in your body. And I mean, you just like, because it's your usual, you don't think about
yeah,
it, right? Like you just kind
yeah,
of move on, and like it's just like that's how you are, like that's how you're used to being. So you don't question it. But once you start to question it and realize, like as you say, like you've been carrying like all these like books in your backpack, like now you realize like the weight of it, and then when you put it down, you're like, oh,
oh, what?
that's
Wow.
that's nice.
There's
That's
so much
nice.
better.
Like I like that. Like, you know, like yeah. And so
Absolutely.
it is like you there are like those those sensations in the body that you can, that are cues to help you, you know, perhaps notice like, huh, something is not right here. Like maybe we need to explore this a little bit, because sometimes you just don't know what's going on. But if you're noticing something within the body, those are cues. Those are really important cues that can help you at least know, okay, there's something that I need to uncover. I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
yet, but just like starting to notice that. And then, you know, perhaps if like you are in a situation where you're triggered, you might notice again, like, oh, sensation in the body. Okay, this happened
Mm-hmm.
with this situation, or when someone said something to me. And
Yeah.
slowly you can
Yeah.
kind of see where that's coming from, or have an idea, or have a starting point, and then kind of move from there.
Absolutely. Yes. Because like the thing of the matter is that like like it also like all of that pertains to self-worth, because here you are, like maybe you kept noticing those feelings, but you kept just doing the thing that you thought you should do, to the
Yeah.
point where like you don't even like know when your gut is talking to you. You don't really know when your intuition is saying, hey, actually hold on before you make that decision. And then from there, like we lose trust in ourselves. Like this year has
Yeah.
been a year of me building back up that trust, because or I mean like just building trust within myself. I don't even know if I can say that I've been building it back up, because
Right.
yeah, I spent so many years just trying to be things for other people and never trying to be like me. Like what does a good me look like? What does a good Elle look like? Like I know like good daughter, sister, blah 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 blah. Even though my brother actually joined, so he'd probably be like, "You're not a good sister. You're horrible."
Yeah, but that's brother talk. I've got brothers too, and like,
Right? Exactly. But you spend so much time like perfecting the roles that other people expect from you that you forget to do it for yourself. And then again, like the self-worth kind of plummets, because like what if that person is having a bad day and they take it out on you? And so now you're thinking, oh man, I did something wrong. I internalize it. And now my body's like, ugh. Yeah, see, we are crappy. Like
Yeah.
we do suck.
I love that you kind of question like whether you're like if you're just building that trust or if you're building it back up. I think it's interesting because like especially when we talk about like gut feeling and intuition, I like when we're born, like we do have this like inner compass of like we usually go towards like what feels good, right? And it's usually as we go on and like we experience rejection or we experience like we just experience like a lot of different things in life. That's when we start to first of all those coping mechanisms start to come in. And then with that, now we're not sure anymore, right? Um so I think like it's I think it's an interesting point that you bring up because it's true it doesn't always feel like there has been trust in the past, but I think we need to acknowledge ourselves for like thinking that it's there, like it is there, but there's just so much like all around it, right? And
Yeah,
it takes time, but
yeah,
like you just need to take it one step at a time.
yeah. And just slowly build back up that muscle, right?
Yeah. So let's
Yeah.
let's have you share. How has the ego hurt you?
Yes, yes, yeah. I totally cut you off
No,
earlier when you
that's
were
okay.
asking me this.
This is like juicy conversation here.
No, for real, for real. The ego has hurt me by keeping me small. Like the idea of me taking up space makes me so uncomfortable. Like
Mhm.
even now, it's like I'll only take up space insofar as I know for a fact that people want me to. And even that, as I say it, I'm like, "Ah, no, like you can't do that, right?" But
Right.
again, so fearful I am still of rejection that I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that that doesn't happen to me. And so taking risks that involve like being vulnerable and being open is really nerve-wracking for me. Like just recently I've been sharing the fact that I love to dance. I thoroughly enjoy dancing, and even
I
for the
loved
longest
your
time,
video. Like, oh
oh,
my,
thank
when I
you.
saw it, I'm like, like you're this
Yes.
like it really shows your energy. So I'm so glad that you're sort of cut you off, but I just have to say it. Like it's like amazing that
Yeah.
you're like it just shows like something so unique about you and like it shows like your essence. Like that's how it felt like when I
Yeah.
saw it. Like it really
Thank
came
you.
from a place of like like this is me.
Yeah.
And I love the
Yes.
energy in that video.
Yeah, exactly. It was saying like this is me and this is what I like to do. And because I felt like I like since I'm not a professional dancer, like who am I to go and show up as a dancer? Because kind of like you, it's like it's not perfect enough. It's not good enough. And it needs to be
Mhm.
good enough. My standard of good enough, which is like out of this world. Like it'll never be good enough kind of thing. Right? And then,
Mhm.
I like through again like just like the network of people that I have around me, the common like pushback I got anytime I vocalized this to people was like, what if like you're like who you are right now, all the good, all the things you think are not so good was enough for this time. Like, what would
Mhm.
you do? And like when I started really playing around with that, it was life changing, like just like life altering because I was like sitting here thinking, like wow, like my ego has really kept me in this place of inadequacy and unworthiness because I've
Mhm.
just been afraid of what other people are going to say. And the fact of the matter is that what other people say, think, act towards me, it like has nothing to do with me half the time. It's me just being a mirror for them and them seeing me thinking, oh, like I would never do that, or oh,
Yeah.
look at her go, or whatever it is, whatever baggage that they're dealing with, just being projected on me. That has nothing to do with me. And honestly,
Yeah.
like my boyfriend is has been such a good teacher for this because like there'll be times when like he'll make a joke and no one will laugh and be like, well, I thought that was funny. And I'm like, aren't you embarrassed though? Like that's like full on rejection right there. No one's laughing, but there he is like, I thought it was funny. I don't care what you think. And I'm like, yo, that's what I need. That's how I need to be. So
Oh, that's amazing. I love that.
yeah. So that's how my ego has hurt me. And like that's also how I'm working to like mitigate that, and like
Mhm.
it really starts with self-awareness, right? To have that understanding, to really like dismantle what I feel is just like this, like maybe like this like Pandora's box of stuff where
Yeah.
you're like, oh, oh geez, this is gonna take some time to work through, you know? But
And
it's
it's
so
okay.
important.
It's okay that it has to take some time, right? But at least now you know, and you're not just trying, like, it's not like you're walking in a dark room and, like, like trying to figure it out and, not getting, feeling like you're not getting anywhere because you just don't even know what you're, like, dealing with to begin with. That's amazing.
Yes,
I love
exactly.
that you like captured that moment with like your boyfriend because I think like you know keeping in mind like those little moments where you see like a win in someone else or like something that like inspires you in someone else and like it helps you again like we're both visual people like you can think back like when you're in that place of ego like what can I do to like recover right now and like move into a new energy and like just having those little moments as like even if it's not your own evidence but like evidence that feeds into your new story of like that's I want to feel more like I want to feel liberated to be more like myself like having that and like kind of keeping it in the back of your mind so that you can use it when you need to in order to move
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, because that also inspires other people, like when I put up that dancing video, there's so many people that said, oh, this is amazing. Yeah, like, yes, dance it out, or wow, like this made my day, or wow, this inspired me. And it really like just had me like taken aback thinking, how many people are not shining their light because they're so afraid of the rejection or whatever kind of lie and excuse that the ego is feeding them, that they
Mm-hmm.
aren't like being that inspiration for other people or just making the world better,
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And
you know?
that like that's the thing, like once we get to a point where now we're sharing that with others, like we're helping others like see the potential in what they could do, right? And that I think that's like when you have those moments of inspiration and you can shine your light, you never know who's watching. And that being said, people who probably saw this are like, Elle is so confident, right? But you've got a whole story that's behind
Oh,
that, right? And it's been a journey. It's
yeah.
been a journey to now get you to like show a video of you dancing and
Yeah.
post it on social media, right? And
Yeah.
like that's why like I think that's why I'm so happy that you and I like shared some like real experiences tonight about how it has helped us and hurt us because it's a journey. Like it's not like rainbows and butterflies and we're just being honest about it. But like it's so rewarding once you become aware of those narrative and like now you are making the conscious choice of creating like a new direction, a new narrative.
Yes, absolutely. And then when you tie that in with self-worth, you know, just having, I feel like positive self-worth looks like being certain in who you are, regardless of what that looks like. So not like, oh my goodness, I'm like the best at everything, but understanding that you'll have good days, you'll have bad days, but regardless, you're gonna get through it. Because like just imagine that, like if you're like walking like a tightrope, when you're like uncertain and shaky, like it gets worse and
Yeah.
it starts bouncing more, another analogy, it starts
No,
bouncing more and it gets like really nerve-wracking, and then you start getting all up in your head about it, and then your body recognizes that your mind is kind of going, like just all out of sorts, right? And then you lose that calm and you lose that inner peace and like and groundedness, Whereas like when you have that certainty, like you're calm, you're collected, you're at ease, you're taking your time, you don't feel the need to rush, you're in the moment, you're more mindful, and you're more grateful for what you are experiencing or what you have in your life. And
Yeah.
so when you have, so I feel like when you have that positive self-worth, you're able to get through anything that comes your way. And that
Mm-hmm.
also means that you would have had to go through a lot of working and
Yeah.
healing your inner child, and telling your ego to take a back seat, and like not really listening to your inner critic too much, that's like bashing your ego, because now it's like you're fighting against yourself, and then like that inner
Yeah.
battle, it's like a storm inside of you, and then it's just like it's so distracting for you to truly be yourself. So yeah,
Yeah.
I just feel like it all plays into each other.
I like that you talked about like positive self-worth and also oh, there was another word you used. I can't remember what it was, but I I really love that it's like positive self-worth is not just about like the rainbows and butterflies though. It's like for me it would be like accepting both sides. And I think, that's why like for us, like it was so important to look at both sides tonight of like how the ego has helped us and hurt us, because it's not just about rejecting like the bad. Like we talked about how we learned a lot from it, right? And like now we're able to move into something completely new. And so I think for me, like positive self-worth would be to accept like the flow between the two and know, and as you said, like have certainty. Like it's almost like, like those are going to happen, you're going to flow back and forth, but having that certainty that like you're able to show love for yourself, that you deserve like all the good, right? And you deserve to like be able to continue to grow and like move forward and learn from all of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, if ever, whoever's been watching tonight, if tonight's content, which was honestly, Elle, I'm so glad that we did this because it was
Yeah.
like just a really good chat about everything. If this is something that's like interesting to you, Elle and I are joining forces in 2 weeks to deliver a live workshop. It's gonna be really good. We're gonna dive deep into all of what we talked about tonight. We're going to be releasing the details to sign up for the workshop on Friday, which is, I think, October 9th. Yep. And we'll release the early bird tickets as well. So there'll be early bird tickets available from the 9th to the 13th. So, yeah, make sure you sign up. If you want more details, follow both of us. We'll be posting about it lots. And you
Yeah.
can also DM us to make sure that, you get it on that information once it's out there. Do you want to add anything on that?
Definitely, yeah. So during the time that we have together in 2 weeks, we'll really be talking about how you can just change your narrative around self-worth so that it actually serves you well. Because it might have been serving you to the point where you are now, which might be good, not so good, but how do you like really take that leap and really like stand in your truth and who you are and really thrive? So
Yeah.
throughout that workshop, we're essentially talking about that self-awareness. Like self-awareness is like the first step. Okay, if you don't notice it, then it'll continue to do
It's
crazy
that
things in
dark
the
room. Like,
background,
if you don't know what's going on, you're just like walking in the dark.
all over the place, right? So really, we really shine a light
Yeah.
on your narrative, and then from there we work on pivoting those thoughts, really shifting that thought pattern so that it again begins to serve you well. And we have really cool activities for that. So I'm very much excited to
Yes.
see the breakthroughs that people have. And then from there, we talk about how you can solidify that in your body, because it's not enough to just change your thought pattern. you need like your body is like the thing that's actually like solidifying it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
once you've changed that thought pattern, we then get you to take action because like we are habitual creatures, right?
Yup.
Like habit, once it
Gotta
can
create a
go
new
into
habit.
your right, once it can go into your unconscious mind, then which is your body essentially, then like I mean you're in good shape. So we essentially just do that progression, and by the end of it you'll have some tools, you will have completed some exercises that will transform your self-worth.
Yes, it's gonna be so good. 2 weeks.
I'm
Yeah, more
excited.
information coming out on Friday. Thank you so much
Yes.
for doing this. Like, this was so good. I'm so glad that we met like what, like earlier this summer, and we just clicked.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the first time that you and I chatted, we were like, things just flowed so well. And we're like, we need to like do something
Do
here.
something.
Like,
Yeah, no, for real. Like it's been 2 months. Like 2 months and you
yeah.
think that we had known each other for like 20. It's crazy. I love it.
I know, I love this connection. So, anyways, I'm
Love it.
so glad that we did this together, and
Yes.
yeah, I hope that we're like I'm looking forward to what we're going to create together.
It's gonna be magic. It's gonna be magic.
It's gonna be
So everyone,
magic.
like stay tuned. Like she said, DM us if you are like, oh my goodness, I need to get in on this ASAP.
Yeah.
Keep me updated. And yeah, make sure that you're following us so that you hear when we do release like early bird tickets and everything like that. Yeah.
All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too, love. Take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.